We're cooking for old-fashioned flavor coming up next. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the Garden to Table, where we explore where your food comes from and create some delicious recipes that come straight from the garden. Now in today's show, we're going to step back in time. In fact, I'm right here on the banks of the Arkansas River, and we're taking a look at some pre-Civil War houses. But more specifically, we're going to take a look at their kitchens, how they prepare food, as well as how they dine. Then we're going to travel north to Chicago and discuss some of my favorite heirloom tomato varieties and some tips on caring for them. And even Thomas Jefferson would recognize a few of these. Plus, I'll show you how to make two amazing desserts that should have biographies of their own: Buttermilk Pecan Pie and old-fashioned Blackberry Jam Cake. Also, a look at this Rustic Tablescape. Well, as you can see, we've got a lot going on in today's show, so let's get started. Hey Swanee, what do you think of my broom here?
Alan, you may have found your right place in life.
Well, with this broom, I think I could do a great job. It's made with corn husks. What's interesting to compare tools we use today to tools of the past. For instance, give me an idea of what this is here on the floor.
That's a type of grill that you would place over the fireplace, and at any given time, then you would see small fires arranged around within this large hearth.
So what is it, like one big fire going on?
No, that was not very efficient.
Sure, sure. And what about this?
It's a toaster. It's a toaster, and
very different looking than the toaster I used.
It was a little tougher to use, but very effective.
And what about this big flat? Was this for like taking bread out or moving coals around?
Exactly. It was a peel, and it was again a multitask tool. All of these things are bespoke work. They're blacksmith made. None of these are mass produced. They're all unique, bespoke pieces.
Well, you know, people are so fascinated by history, and what I love about what you all do here is that you actually put a lot of this to work, and I know next door they're cooking up a dish.
They are indeed, and we'd love to show you.
Let's go check it out. Wow, it smells good in here.
Yeah, this is our pre-Civil War kitchen. This is a reconstruction of an 1840s kitchen in Little Rock.
It's marvelous. I mean, and I'm loving the warmth from this firebox. That little fire is really throwing out a lot of heat.
It does, and the way the back of the fireplace is made, the back of the hearth, the firebox is made, it reflects naturally, so you don't have to put a fire back in there.
Now, is this a Rumford?
It is based. Most of these fireplaces by this time, Count Rumford, even out in the wilds of Arkansas, he was known.
And for good reason. Now tell me about this, Swanee. This is obviously a cooker, and the ladies are serving up something lovely here because I can smell it. It smells like chicken.
Alan, it's a reflector oven with its own built-in turning jack like you'd see at Williamsburg.
So what do I do, just raise this up?
Raise that up.
Oh, looky there.
And it's on a spit.
Wow.
And the spit actually turns. The chicken is finishing up.
Well, it sure is. It's beautiful. Looks like they've got it wrapped in herbs.
They do. I think those are in thyme and herbs we grow.
And rosemary. Yeah.
Grow here in our raised bed gardens.
And so it has a bottom there that catches the fat drippings. So this device, give me an idea of how early one would have seen one of these cookers.
Well, again, we're talking about malleable sheet metal, bespoke work. So we're looking at late 18th. You start seeing these larger reflector ovens by the third quarter of the 18th century, fourth quarter, and then they become really popular during the 19th century when they learned how to roll this metal. And many homes would not have thought to had their kitchen furnished without one.
Yeah, yeah, it was a thing to have. And it looks like over here we've just got a classic Dutch oven underway with hot coals on it.
It's three-legged, and that way you can burn coals. And you may remember earlier I mentioned that they would make several small fires around the fireplace.
Well, I'm going to close this up to keep the chicken warm. So as far as a tablescape or table setting, Swanee, how would the table have been set at this period?
Well, we have a nice example in one of our dining rooms that shows an early 19th century table set for dinner.
Let's go take a look at it.
All right.
Ladies, keep up the great work. It smells divine. Okay, now, Swanee, what does this table setting represent?
Well, what we think it represents, Alan, is sort of a composite view of a dining room setup, a dining table set up in a period about 1825 to 1830.
Really? So, I mean, this far out in the in the frontier to have this level of sophistication, I mean, that's pretty surprising.
And it's really a common misconception, and I can understand why people might have that perception. But our research tells us that anything you could get in Boston or New York, you could get in Little Rock. The key was the water had to be up and those steamboats had to be able to come up the river.
I see.
So you see this feather edge, you see the coin silver,
Yeah.
You see the wines and the different beverages they would drink.
Well, I love the featherware plates and the platter. I have some of that, and of course this coin silver. I've always been attracted to it. It's very handsome. And often coins were melted down to create these pieces of tableware.
To the chagrin of the government, and I'm in no way promoting the melting down of American silver coinage, but they did it wholesale. Yes.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
hard to get silver bar.
Yeah. This has been fascinating. Thank you so much, Swanee.
You're welcome.
Great to see you again.
Good to see you
Why don't
too.
we go see if we can have some of that chicken?
Let's go.
I wish you could smell this pie. I just took it out of the oven. It's very hot, but it smells delicious. What it is, it's a pecan buttermilk pie. Combines two things I love, pecans and buttermilk. Why don't we get started with a lot of the ingredients that go into making sort of the base of the pie. First of all, what I'm going to do is take a stick of butter. This is salted butter, and I've melted it, and it's one stick, and I'm pouring it in here like this. And then I'm going to add the dry ingredients, everything except the eggs. We'll get to those in just a minute. I'm adding 1.5 cups of sugar. There we go. And then the buttermilk, yum yum. I know people have very definite ideas about buttermilk, but it certainly has its place, particularly with this recipe. It's 1 cup of buttermilk. Now what we're going to do is add the flour, and there's 1/4 cup of flour, so I'm going to just lower this. And I'm going to add it slowly. I just don't want it to clump. It's blending very well. All right, now while that carries on, this recipe requires 3 eggs. So what I'm going to do is take these eggs, and these were laid by some of our heritage chickens, a great dual-purpose breed, one called a New Hampshire Red. Beautiful markings on them, red in color as the name implies, and dual purpose means that they were raised for both their egg and meat production. But they're a very good egg layer, so if you're thinking about having some chickens around, a few New Hampshire Red hens would be the way to go. It'll keep you in full supply of eggs. All right, now this is blending together nicely, so I'm going to add these 3 eggs. There we go. I'm going to take a teaspoon of vanilla and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And that's all it takes. Let me speed this up just a moment. Make sure everything is blended very, very well. Whew. Got a little accelerated there, didn't it? All right, here we go. Now with this batter, I'm going to pour it into this pie shell like this. And I want to make sure we get all of that good stuff out of there. Looks so yummy. And the last stage is to simply take the pecans, and what you take is a full cup. And what I have are glazed pecans here, and these are toasted, and they're toasted with some corn syrup and sugar, and I'm just going to mash them up a little bit. These are pecan halves, and I want to break them up. So just put them in a sandwich bag like this. Very easy to do. And then open up the bag and take those broken pecans and spread them out generously and evenly all over the top of the pie. Then you'll simply place the pie in the oven. It's preheated at 325, and the pie will need to bake for about, well, under an hour, 50 minutes. And I'm telling you, it is one of the best pies you will eat. I love to serve it with a little whipped cream and a great cup of coffee. Give it a try. Well, it's spring now, and they're planting the gardens, and very soon it'll be time to get those tomatoes planted. Let's go to the Chicago Botanic Garden, where Rick Belding has a beautiful heirloom collection. In fact, he's growing one of Thomas Jefferson's favorites. Rick, these plants are so beautiful. How many different varieties of heirloom tomatoes do you have planted here?
This year we're growing 17 different varieties.
17?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite?
Well, I do actually, and it was also one of the favorites at the Seed Savers Exchange back in 2008.
Oh, and what's the name?
Gold Medal.
Gold Medal. Yes. I have had Gold Medal. It is a very good one.
It is, and it's a yellow tomato with some red streaking, so it's not only attractive, but it's delicious.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the plants are so robust. I'm very impressed, and it's all organic, all organically grown, I should say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I think it speaks volumes for giving tomatoes what they need. Tomatoes are sun lovers, and they also require good air circulation, and we've been able to provide both of those things here at the garden.
And so this beautiful block of tomatoes is all being grown organically. How do you deal with the sort of typical problems with growing tomatoes, like tomato hornworm, for instance?
Well, I think the key thing to consider when it comes to growing organically is to be proactive. So you need to be in your garden. You need to catch problems early. Now, we noticed that we had a caterpillar, at least one out here, because we saw its droppings. When it comes to growing tomatoes, any caterpillar that's going to be eating the foliage is problematic.
And you can see the foliage stripped.
Exactly.
Once they get really going. They have a voracious appetite.
Yes, they do.
We use BT to try to take care of caterpillars. Is that what you would do here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We use BT not only on tomatoes, but we also use it on all the brassicas that we're growing here at the garden.
Yeah, the cabbage family.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Rick, what about blossom end rot? That's a fairly common problem.
Right, and that is a problem that we have. And you know, I try and make sure that the soil has sufficient calcium.
Yes.
Knowing that blossom end rot is indicative of calcium deficiency. But the thing to understand is, even if your soil is carrying a sufficient amount of calcium, your tomatoes can still show those symptoms. And it's a very telling problem, because the blossom end of the tomato actually becomes necrotic, becomes black.
Big flat black spot.
Exactly, and there's no mistaking it. So you do what you can to make sure that the tomato establishes a robust root system so it can extract as much calcium as possible from the soil. But another thing to keep on top of is watering, because inconsistent watering can certainly contribute to blossom end rot.
Yeah, you want to keep it as consistent as possible. That's why I like to use a clean mulch like leaves or wheat straw. I love, because it can put a thick layer of that. It keeps the soil nice and moist under there. And
that's more important than many gardeners realize.
Well, that's all very sound advice. Thank you very much, Rick. I tell you, I'm just knocked out by this robust assembly of plants. Earlier I saw Costuluto Genovese down on that end.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great old variety. Yeah, I know from my readings of Thomas Jefferson's work in the garden that was one of his favorites.
And it's clear that he was an avid gardener. you know, we can all be thankful that he left such grand records of what he did.
And it's fun, you can grow these things today and taste a bit of history.
Exactly, exactly.
I want to share with you a recipe that I really love. It comes from my family's past. It's a big cake with big flavor, and it involves two ingredients that I adore: black walnuts and blackberries. It's called Blackberry Jam Cake, and it came to me through my grandmother Smith. It was actually her grandmother's. So it's really a wonderful cake for any time of the year, particularly for the fall or winter. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some eggs. And what I'm using here are 6 eggs, and these actually came from our chickens, Plymouth Rocks, which is what my grandmother Smith raised. It was a dual-purpose breed, bred for meat and eggs, and they lay these beautiful brown eggs, and we get about 3 to 4 eggs per hen per week. And getting the last egg here. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is work on some of the dry ingredients. What you have for this recipe, you have flour, of course, and there are 4 cups of flour. And what I'm going to add to this will be, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 2 teaspoons of nutmeg. Really adds to the flavor of this cake. And then a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm going to mix all this up together. And then you add the black walnuts and raisins, but what I like to do first is take just a little bit of the flour mixture and just add it over here. And what you want to do is make sure the flour completely coats the raisins and the black walnuts. Now, after completely dusting these raisins and walnuts, by the way, I've got 1 cup of raisins and 1 cup of walnuts here. I'm ready to leave the dry ingredients for a moment, then move over here to the wet ones. And what we're going to do is we're going to mix with these egg yolks 2 cups of brown sugar and 2 cups of blackberry jam. And you can use seedless blackberry jam if you like, although I like really the old-fashioned quality of blackberry jam with the seeds. And then 2 sticks of butter, all right? And it's softened at room temperature. And you want to mix all of this together. If I'd been thinking about it, what I'd have done is I would have chopped up the butter. It would have gone in smoother, but it's soft and it's all blending together here. You can see it makes a beautiful color. Okay, you can see sort of the consistency of it. I don't have any clumps of butter. Now I'm ready to add the buttermilk, and I have 2 cups of buttermilk. It's gonna be so good. And once I get this all blended together, the buttermilk, it'll be time to add the dry mixture, the flour. You can use a hand mixer if you want, but I like the exercise. Adding the buttermilk, it's not nearly as thick, but we're going to take care of that now by just adding a little flour at a time. So what I've used here is all-purpose flour, and by adding just a little bit at a time, it keeps it from getting lumps in it. And I don't even sift the flour. In the recipe from Grandmother Smith, there was no sifting of the flour involved. This is very much a delicious but coarse country cake. See, I've got it all blended together, and that blackberry color is still very present. We grow lots of different kinds of blackberries here. The Indian series is very good. The berries are enormous. And my sister-in-law made a lot of blackberry jam this past year, and so that's what we used for this cake. Now I'm ready to do the egg whites. What I have here are 6 egg whites, as you'll recall. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to give them just a little lift. What you want to do is you want to whip these whites to where they're not quite a meringue. You still want them really, just really loose. So you can see you're not making a meringue. What you want to do is you just want it to be really sort of a loose meringue with the whites. And then what we'll do is we'll add this to the cake batter now. And this will help lighten the cake. So you want to make sure that the egg white is thoroughly introduced into this batter. Okay, now I think I've got all the whites blended in. And now for the last ingredients, remember we dusted these black walnuts and raisins. So I'm just going to add these and make sure that they are evenly distributed through the entire batter. Okay, now we're ready to pour it up into a large bundt pan. Now you need to realize that you can use a tube pan or a bundt pan, but you want to make sure for this much batter it's a very large pan because there is a lot of batter here. Now I'm going to go ahead and pour this in. Okay, so I've got all the batter in there and it's ready to go into the oven. But what you want to do is you want to bake it at 325 for about an hour to an hour and 30 minutes. Just check it to see if it's completely done on the inside with a toothpick. Now, I'm not going to put that in the oven. I'm going to take this one that's finished and I want to show you this marvelous old-fashioned caramel icing that I've already made. I used 2 cups of brown sugar, 1 stick of butter, and a half a cup of heavy cream. And this is amazing on this cake. And I just like to see it drizzle off the sides. It has a wonderful flavor. And when we were children, we used to love to go over to her house and have this cake, mainly around the holidays, but I like it all year round. Give it a try. It's always fun to set a tablescape in an old-fashioned way, and nothing's better in spring than to use daffodils. Just look at the golden color here. Now, even though our theme is old-fashioned cooking, I wanted there to be a color theme for the tablescape. Obviously, we have yellow, but one of the best colors I find with yellow is blue. So I have this accented with blue napkins, and then everything else is very neutral here. We have brown, black, pewter, and even dark gray. And I've lightened it up just a little bit with these placemats, which are sort of a wheaten color. And if you take a look at the tableware, the forks and knives have bone handles, which also echo that same color as the placemat. These are 19th century. Typically, forks had 3 prongs, as you can see here, and much smaller than what we use today. This tablescape is filled with all kinds of yard sale and flea market finds, like these little cast iron containers like this one, and this one even has a little lid on it. And even big Dutch ovens. This will be perfect for serving up some of my lamb stew. And I've also used for the vases all different kinds of things to hold the flowers. Wine crafts, old medicine bottles, even mason jars. The main thing is just to look around, see what you have, and assemble it in a fun and creative way. And hey, if it's not spring and you don't have daffodils, for summer, this table setting would be equally beautiful with different kinds of sunflowers. They would pick up the yellow, which would be a beautiful contrast with the blue napkins. Give it a try. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed our little step back in time, and I hope you'll try some of those time-honored recipes. Until next time, good eating and good health.